So the floor is yours.
All right, can I start? Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
All right, let me. See. There's lots of things. Okay. I'm curious, can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yep.
All right, let me briefly introduce myself. First of all, I would like to say thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Professor Cha, and thank you for participating in this IBS Data Science. This is my first time to meet Professor Cha, so it's my honor because I have read her article a lot while I'm studying, and also I have cited her articles a lot because I've been impressed by her influencer important studies a lot. So it's my great honor and to be here to share my research output with the IBS lab. So let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Sejung Park. I'm an assistant professor at Carroll University. I'm in Team Losser Department of Communication. So I graduated Georgia State University in 2017, which is 3 years ago, and I've been working as an assistant professor here at Carroll University, which is located in Ohio, in Ohio in United States. So Ohio is fairly fine for the COVID-19, but honestly, I have been stressed for the COVID-19 a lot because, as you know, we have a very interesting president who don't really manage the COVID-19 well. And Professor Park has been also suffered from COVID-19 a lot because he's been lived in Daegu, and Daegu was one of the most effective area. So we started this research to see if there is anything we can contribute to providing knowledge and about the COVID-19 conversations from users' perspective and from media perspectives to help decision-making process of health professionals. So our title of the talk is Conversational Network and use shared on social media during the COVID-19 pandemic in South Korea. So the flow of the talk, Professor Park will first outline some challenges and opportunities when we study computational communications using big data. Then I will move to present the specific research we have published recently. The first one is about the COVID-19, which was published in Journal of Medical Internal Research in May. And the second one is about infotainment-driven news on YouTube influence on public reaction, which is under review. I just submitted the manuscript yesterday night. So this is the really ongoing paper. Yeah, so let me introduce Professor Park to provide a little background of these two studies. So I think you might be familiar with Professor Park, who's a YeungNam University professor, and he was a founder of Cyber Emotions Research Center, and he's also president of WhatsApp and the DISC associations. So Professor Park, can you provide a little background of our two studies?
Okay, thank you very much. And then first of all, I would like to thank the Dr. Mi-young Cha, to bring us, to share our research with, all of you. And then, before I start our talk, I like to give you some, like a past about Mi-young Cha and myself. Actually, we have been knowing each other for quite a long time, and because I kind of established an international conference in Daegu called DISC, Disk Data Innovation, Social Network and Convergence. And I asked Dr. Myung Cha to give a keynote talk, and then at that time I didn't know her at all, but she was really willing to come down to Daegu to give her valuable research to the international audience. Since then, I have been, reading through her research, and then her team has been doing great research, and then she is really doing the, several kinds of the interdisciplinary research beyond the computer science research. But to be honest, we have never collaborated each other, so it's a pity. But in the future, I really hope to collaborate with the Dr. Cha on the several topics, including Corona. And so this talk actually will be, the Sejung Park, the Sejung will be guiding this talk, and then I'm giving you the just umbrella information about the big data, and then why we took this kind of the hybrid methodological approach. So as you know that, the term big data has spread widely since 2010. But the academic route began in the computer science in 1970s. But at that time, big data was just, nobody knows the term big data because it was just a trivial term. But with the advent of the internet, World Wide Web in the 90s, and then knowledge discovery in data, it's called the KDD. And then this kind of term emerged. And then also another term, e-research or e-science, cyber science, virtual science. So several emerging, terminology popped up since 2000. And actually, I worked for the Royal Dutch Academy right after my PhD, and then my research team was looking at the web indicators, and then I went to the Oxford Internet Institute, and then in Oxford Internet Institute there is the team called e-research. So, but big data did not really spread around, but big data has become really conceptualized since the most influential magazine, Science published a special issue of big data in 2011, and then Oxford Dictionary actually indexed the big data in 2013. So now everybody knows the big data, and it has been 10 years since the Science and Oxford. But still, we kind of struggling about what the big data is and what's the meaning of big data, what's the methodological scope of big data, why. The big data, it means complex and diverse. And then this complex and diverse signals actually give us some information about human mind and perception and behaviors. And this big data is unstructured or unstructured digital data. So we really cannot get the meaning of the big data, or we really cannot get some context out of big data, and then we cannot do anything. So we thought how to combine this, like the pure quantitative big data approach with some kind of traditional or qualitative approach. And then I came across the new article by the Davison in the UK. I actually put the article in the chatting window. As you can see, the article, the title says the big qualitative approach. So this person says the big data qualitative style and breadth and depth method for working with a large amount of the secondary qualitative data. So I thought, it might be useful to combine traditional method with the big data approach. So what are the traditional methods? What are the most traditional methods in communication science? So communication science, we often take the framing approach. So what is a frame approach? Framing actually looking at the agenda setting, how media present the essence of the issue, or how media present the social activities. So we think that this framework project can be, conducted much better in a combination with database approach, so-called like machine learning or semantic network analysis or supervised learning. So we thought that this hybrid analytical framework using computerized text mining technique contribute to the both theoretical and methodological insight into the function of user sharing in the context of social media. So, and then we, as you know, that we are living with the corona, and then there are so many informations from the social media on corona. And then, as the Dr. Myung-Cha mentions in the beginning, there are numerous amount of the research on corona coming out. We need some kind of the innovative approach. So, we kind of made attempt to combine this frame approach with the big data approach, and also the purely quantitative approach with the qualitative approach. And then we really got in early in this COVID research, and then our papers was very well accepted because we really, submitted this research very early of the corona pandemic. So that is pretty much all about our background. And before I give my mic to the Sejung Pa, I put the two journals here. So I'm responsible for the two journals. I'm a chief editor of the Quality and Quantity, and then Journal of Contemporary Eastern Asia. So I'm very much welcome, your papers on coronavirus. So please, submit your valuable research to the to journals. And this is my introduction. And then why the Sejong giving a talk, and then I jump in wherever necessary. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Park, thank you so much for providing the contextual information about why new approach is necessary. And I really appreciate your insights of combining the traditional research and big data analytics. As Professor Park just briefly shared, and I'm the framing and agenda setting are two mostly cited theories in communication science and social science in generally. And I am, my research area is in the interaction between social networks and framing or communication theories. So, and I'm navigating how big data and traditional big data can answer any questions of communication theories we traditionally studies using experiment and survey. Can this provide new approaches? And now we are trying to combine those traditional approaches such as content analysis with the text mining approaches. So which the text mining approaches can answer what the qualitative or traditional content analysis cannot do that. And also the traditional content analysis approaches or thematic analysis or rhetorical analysis can answer things the big data cannot provide us. So I think combining both approaches are really important. So let me jump into our first research. As I prepared two research presentations. I don't know which what will be better, Professor Cha. Do you think we have a discussion after each paper, or can we have a just discussion after two presentations? Which will be better?
Let's have it for each paper because people may forget if it's too long.
Yeah. I think that would be better. Okay, so we'll first start about the JMIR research. So the title is Conversations and Medical News Frames on Twitter, Epidemiological Study on COVID-19 in South Korea. as you may have heard about the term infodemiology, I'm not sure how familiar you are, but I know Professor Chow already published a similar paper, so I assume you may have read her paper. So infodemiology is approaches to inform public health officials and develop public policies about health using informatics approaches by analyzing consumer-generated information on the internet or social media, so that they can provide, actually, they can reflect the health status of individuals and any concerns they may have, or awareness about certain issues, or other health-related behavior intentions. So the health data scientists argue that social media analytics or web analytics, applying those informatics into health data, which is epidemiology, can provide new approaches, and also it can complement traditional epidemiological data, which has been focused using hospital or pharmacy data. As you know, that takes a huge amount of time and it's very expensive to get it. But there is free and large amounts of consumer data, so we can use that public data to make sense about how public perceive certain diseases, how they behave during the pandemic situation. So the research objectives of this study, we use epidemiological approach, and we analyze Twitter networking transmission networks of public conversations, and we also analyze the news sharing behavior during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we focused particularly the Daegu area, which was the most affected area on Twitter. So we comparatively analyzed the conversational patterns and top news channels people shared and top news sources, and the framing of popular information, which has been mostly shared on social media during COVID-19. So by splitting the network based on certain keywords, this research can provide that which keywords, what might be the optimal keywords to use in campaigns to facilitate certain information, or for facilitating some sharing of some information, or promoting certain behavior of the public, and also their responses. So the analytical framework we used is we have used the content analysis, and also we used network analysis, and we determine whether there are significant differences between the different keyword network in terms of using some news sources and popular news frames shared on Twitter. So here are some research questions. The first research question is there a difference in communication network structure among the 4 networks? We compared the coronavirus, Corona-19, which was the almost official name of COVID-19 in Korea. So it's a Korean version of COVID-19. And Sincheonji, which is the religious group, and Daegu, which is the most affected area. And what are the characteristics of the conversational patterns among the users in these 4 networks? The second research question is, which news topics and media channels generate the users' interest, and what are their characteristics? Do the most frequently mentioned news topics display any differences in media outlet type? And the third one is, what perspective on news articles are observed from a media organization point of view? So we applied framing theory there. So the methods we used the Node.xl to collect our data. Node.xl uses the search API of Twitter. So we collected all of the tweets that contained the term coronavirus, Corona-19, or Sincheonji, or Daegu, and we generated 4 different matrices for that. And we collected them on February 20, and they covered the most recent weeks at that time. And it was kind of the peak of the coronavirus issues in South Korea. So it pretty much captures the most talkative network in Twitter. So the final sample we collected comprises 43,000 Twitter users, and they generated 78 6,000 relationships, which includes original tweets or their retweet or replies to behavior or mentions. So first we did the network analysis. I will not go detail about the network analysis because I assume you maybe know more than me. So we analyzed the nature of the information transmission of the 4 networks, and we computed some multiple centrality and network metrics. And then we classified the top 10 news in each network. And we classify the top 10 news in terms of the source orientation, which is portal or non-portal news. 2 coders independently coded, and then the intercoder reliability was high. Then, yeah, sure.
Clarify like how you define the edge. It has to be either replies or retweets.
That's a good question. Yeah, it could be either replies to or mention. If there is any kind of relationship, there is a relationship, except for the original tweet, which is like self-tweets.
But the following does not count here.
Oh, the following? Which one?
Just
no, following.
No, following is
not important. Okay.
No.
Only communication relations was considered.
Right. So the news framing coding, we have first inductively reviewed most of the tweets, and then we adapted previous research to identify news frames. And we concluded that these 6 frames emerged from the data set. So we coded all the top news sources into conflict, whether we have read all of tweets manually, and then we coded, the top 10 news for each network. So it will be total 40. So we qualitatively coded them into whether the framing, what is the major framing of the news, whether it is a conflict that, saying any disagreements between parties, individuals, or if it is about human interest, if that emphasizes some role of individuals or groups related to issue, or if that say something about the responsibility of the government, so that's attribution of responsibility, or any responsibility of the COVID-19 situation, and morality frame that contains any moral or ethical messages. And medical news frames were coded if there are specific medical or health information related to the problem. An entertainment frame was, whether it covers any cultural issues such as celebrity or sports or food. And we realized that there is a lot of entertainment issues because so many celebrities donated to COVID-19 relief. And 2 coders coded, and there was strong intercoder reliability.
Can I ask you more? So I read your paper, but I think it would be good to clarify, like when you're talking about the news frame, how do you know a certain topic is news versus anyone So
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We actually identified all of the hyperlink included in the tweets, and then we selected the top 10 shared news. So it's a regularly news, not about information shared by anybody, but it should be media reporting. That was our criteria.
Are you?
So we kind of, can I just jump in?
Sure.
Yeah, so we kind of traced the origin of use, because the Twitter has some limited number of text, right? 140. So, they do not have the full story of news, but they do have the URL linked from the tweet message. So we tracked down the original posting, and then we have read the news story, and then we classified the frames in terms of the communication theory.
Right, right. So you're only accounting for the major news platforms, and you don't look into the like the internet news. There are thousands of internet only news, but you're maybe looking into the subset of the news outlets that are that appear on either Naver News or Daum News.
No, that's not entirely true. So like we tracked down, all the news source, news outlet, but the selection of the tweet posting are very much limited. So we collected like the 100 what the 10,000 tweet posting, but we did not track down all of the 10,000 tweet postings in terms of their news source. We tracked only top, tweet postings. What kind of news source, top tweet postings, shared. Am I clear?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank
Sejung.
you for, yeah. So it basically it can be any kind of news if it's popular. But the results will be interesting. If you see it, people mostly share the major news outlets. So let's move to the results part. So as you can see, these are the 4 network diagrams. So the coronavirus network is the top left, and Corona-19 is the top right, and Shincheonji is the top below left, and Daegu is the last one. So node size in this network was between its centrality, and each node refers to the Twitter. So as we compared, the research says that there is a complex structure. It's composed of multiple layers of smaller subgroups. And we found around 20 major sub-communities, and a lot of small communities emerged. And many interactions occurred at an individual level with a small number of isolated users. So the structure of the networks are pretty similar. Mostly it's like a scattered network. So to dive more deeply about the characteristics of the network, here's some brief research. So the coronavirus network has the largest node size, and Corona-19 has the next larger network. And Shincheonji and Daegu, there are less participants compared with coronavirus and Corona-19. Because
can I ask one question?
Sure.
So what is the ages with duplicates? It means 2 nodes have more than one age, is it?
This was still created as just one. We didn't, because it's a really big network. It's really hard to show the strength of the ties. So this side, but if there is at least one connection, we show there is a connection.
Yes, you asked about the definition of the duplicate edges.
Yes.
Yeah. So if there is more than one conversation, we consider it the duplicate.
Yes, that's what.
edges.
Okay. So ages with duplicates, they are 3,000. And unique ages are 14. What do you mean by unique age? It means one single age. What is a unique age?
So if we count the duplicate edges only once, and then it's the number of unique edges.
Okay, got it. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. And then in order to answer the Dr. Cha's questions, previous question, we kind of tracked down 2-step news source. So most of the tweet posters linked to the Naver or Daum, and then Naver and Daum, they also have the news source, another news source or original news source, right? So we went to the Naver Daum, and then we went to the further, what media channel they referred. So kind of a 2-step, tracking in terms of the news source.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Sejung.
Yeah. So, and as you see, the isolates, the Shincheonji and Daegu has more isolates than coronavirus and Corona-19. So this can see the regional issues has smaller participants and smaller number of, but there are more interactions for the regional and more controversial issues like Shincheonji and Daegu than coronavirus and Corona-19. And as you see, the self-aloof refers to the original tweet with original tweet which does not tweet to anybody else, but just to to tweet to themselves. So you see the Shincheonji and Daegu has a higher original tweets, and then coronavirus and Daegu has a less than the coronavirus. And reciprocity rates in terms of the nodes and ties are pretty small. So we also did some component analysis and other, we compared other metrics of the network indicators, and we realized that the more participants and more number of isolated users are observed related to general issues than regional issues. And interestingly, the coronavirus network has the most redundant relationships, the duplicate relationships, as one of the participants asked, followed by Shincheonji network. That means that when people use the term coronavirus, they continue to talk to each other about the certain issues in this network. And interestingly, the Shincheonji network has the highest reciprocity rate. That means that people have more interactions about the Shincheonji issue. So it reflects people's interest in this issue. And also the other interesting finding is that the coronavirus network has the smallest diameter and the average geodesic distances than other networks. And so the users communicated more frequently with each other when they use the term coronavirus, and the spread of information was faster than other networks. So when the information spread fastly, it was more effective in problem solving. So that means that maybe the campaign designer want to use the term coronavirus rather than other terms. They want to facilitate the communication information fastly. So let's move to the framing parts. So before we talk to the framing parts, here are some examples of popular news. So because of time, I think I have to skip some issues, such as some college students create a fact-checking site to prevent fake news related to COVID-19. That's one of the top, and some other news related to foreign countries, like how the foreign countries support COVID-19, especially for helping Daegu medical staff, and foreign policy issues to resolve the COVID-19 problem. That's the contents of the popular news. So the most cited news channels we analyzed is that the Corona-19 news cited more portal news than did non-portal news. And the coronavirus network used more non-portal than portal news. And Daegu and Shincheonji included more portal news. So interesting, the regional network has more portal news than the non-portal sources. And we coded all of the frames and see if there are any significant differences between the networks. And there was no differences among the 4 networks in terms of what frame they have used. So we used the chi-square test, and then they said that there are similar frames emerged in top shared news. But we dig into what kind of news frames and news frames are popular, and we realized that the tweets containing medically framed news articles are more popular than tweets that included non-medical news frames. That was significant.
So just one second, what is the meaning of popular? Popular means they are retweeted many number of times, is it?
I think we counted the number of favorites of the news.
Number of
favorites.
Favorite, okay, liking. It's a like
yes,
kind of thing,
yes,
is it?
yes, number of favorite, yeah. So that,
okay.
Yeah, so we conceptualize that as a popularity. So there is a correlation between if there is a using medical news frames, people like the news more than non-medical news frames. So I think I have to almost finalize this research. So as I mentioned, there are differences in terms of the spread of information about what term to use, but the frames are very similar. There are some attribution of responsibility and entertainment and human interest are popular frames. So these are non-medical frames. These are mostly shared on social media. However, interestingly, medical news frames are more popular. So people like the medical news frames, but share the news that has non-medical news frames. So that's the interesting thing. So some limitation and conclusion is that we realize that that we can reflect social media users' views and behaviors and interest in certain news during the pandemic situation. But some limitations are some users may have produced more content than others, which is kind of normal of the internet content creation. And we don't know whether the who use the term Daegu or Shincheonji, whether they are residents of or visitors of Daegu city, or they have just totally no relationship with these cities. So we don't know about their intentions of sharing those kind of things. But still, we think that monitoring public conversations and media news that propagate rapidly can assist public health professionals, especially in designing strategy communication tools, and it may help their decision-making process in shaping in managing COVID-19. So I think before I jump to the other study, if there are any questions, we can have a brief discussion and then we can move on.
Sejung, there are a couple of questions in chatting window. And
okay,
why don't you take a look at them, and then I also assisting you in answering these questions.
And I also have some questions here.
So
sure,
why don't you start about chatting window first, because they posted.
I'm kind of okay. Now I'm looking for where's the chatting window. I found it. Yeah, I found it. Thank you. So can you give an example of medical frames? Medical frames, for example, how to prevent COVID-19 or what's the symptoms of COVID-19. So any professional information, the health information, or where to go and how to detect the COVID-19 and where to get treatment or something like that.
But
so Dr. Cha, can I share my screen just a second?
Yeah, I think so. You can. There is no limit in sharing.
You may have to stop sharing for someone.
Yeah, maybe I will stop first.
Okay, I shared my screen.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, for example, I'm giving you some, sense about what we had. Like you can link this is the links URLs from the tweet postings, and then we coded manually link, source, and headline, and and then like the network type and popularity, and then news agency, non-polar and polar, and then frames, oralities, public affairs. So we coded like this. So this part is really manual, so very much qualitative approaches. That is why we were not able to content analyze all of the tweet postings. I think this gives you some sense of how we conducted.
Okay, thank you. And there's a question by Sean.
Yeah, maybe I can explain more because I think you've only crawled tweets related to coronavirus issues, but maybe I'm just wondering that there will be any like unique traits for the non-coronavirus related networks, such as if if the kind of reciprocity rates or number of interaction rates would be like higher related to coronavirus issue, then what about the not coronavirus networks at the same time? I'm just wondering whether people also share many other news more, or they're more focusing on coronavirus issue only. Those kind of questions I can ask.
Oh, you mean the Daegu and Shincheonji, what kind of news are more shared, right? So in Daegu network, as you can see, the attribution of responsibility frame was more emerged because there was some controversial issues related to the mayor of the Daegu city who manages the COVID-19. And for Shincheonji network, it was interesting. Most of the frames are evenly used, but attribution of responsibility was also high. It's because of how to control that religious groups, and and also some morality issues emerged in Shincheonji because of people's selfish behavior. That's a really good question. Thank you. Did I answer your question or?
Yes. You did, and maybe for the future work, you can cross some more tweets not related to coronavirus at all at the same time period. Like I don't know how exactly you can do it, but maybe you can set up some more keywords for certain popularity and just check the online news about those topics, and maybe you can compare the network traits for the coronavirus issue network and non-coronavirus issues at all.
Oh, that's interesting. So you mean that just to compare the coronavirus related issues with other issues to see the genuine characteristics of the coronavirus network? That would be another approach. But we may need to think about how could we justify because we are comparing apple to oranges. So that's the kind of thing we need to think about, but I think that's a really interesting approach. Definitely we will consider that. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
And I think there are some other questions. Let me see. There is a question. I'm most interested in knowing what was like, this is question to Dr. Park. Yeah, what was it like to be Daegu citizen throughout the pandemic? Whether information online was helpful to those in the widely affected areas? Yeah, maybe Professor Park experienced that, so he can better answer that.
As you know that the penetration rate of the Twitter has been decreasing in South Korea, but while we took the Twitter among the other social media, everybody knows like getting the social media data through the API extremely difficult, but only Twitter is still accessible. That is why we took Twitter. So which means I'm not fully sure the ordinary citizen getting information from the Twitter regarding the corona pandemic, but why we did this and why the result is important. These people are kind of big mouth. These people are influencers. They are information hub. So although ordinary citizen may not get information from this Twitter, but still this information can be spread around ordinary citizens. So in response to your question, it might be helpful or not. That is the kind of the catch-22 in this point.
Thank you. Okay, Sarika, you want to ask your question?
Do you have another question? No, right?
I think she may be not. You are muted, Sarika. Do you know?
Dr. Chad, you are muted here.
Yes, so maybe Sarika will ask the question in the next round, maybe.
Yeah, feel free to email me.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because of the time, I think I will just show just the highlights of the second research. Yeah, thank you for your enthusiastic discussion. I hope I have, we have this seminar before we publish it, so I cannot revise the paper anymore, but thank you for your all of the insights. So the second study, this was about how news framing on Twitter and influences people's commenting and liking and engagement about the news. And the interesting approach of this study is that we focus on infotainment framing. So infotainment framing is one of the popular approaches the online journalism trying to adapt right now. That's the combined coin between information and entertainment. So now online news is trying to amuse audiences at the same time deliver information, so the infotainment. And mostly online news, or especially the popular news, are adopting the infotainment news coverage on YouTube, which is very Korean phenomena. And I'm not sure if you have heard of, maybe you have heard about the Video Mug, which is SBS's YouTube channel. So they really adapted the infotainment news coverage. So they rejected the traditional cliche in news reporting, and they adapted the soft news style. And when the North Korea leader Kim Jong-un met the President Moon, there was a romantic music and some interesting emoticons and emojis and subtitles, funny subtitles. They use the humor, sarcasm, satire, or music, entertaining, other small kind of things. These are pretty new approaches. I mean, within these 10 years, this infotainment, approaches emerged. So we are interested in North Korea is a perfect case study to see, and North Korea has been framed very negatively in South Korean media. So previous study shows that negative news frames really shape the negative attitudes towards North Korea. So we are curious about whether these infotainment approaches on YouTube can actually change people's perception and attitudes towards North Korea. So of course, this is not an experimental study, so there is a limitation to see people's perception changes or behavior changes, but we can see that they reflect the proxy of people's interests and perceptions, as we did semantic network analysis and machine learning based sentiment analysis. So let's move to the research findings, because so this is a network. The left one was the total network of the people's conversations in comments on, or we selected the top like 94 video news in the video mugs the news about North Korea, and we mapped the people's conversations within the news or of the 93 news, and then we see that there are some cohesive groups in the center, and we zoom in those interactions, and we see that those are very partisan people, either very conservative or very progressive. Those partisan people are trying to, produce polarizing information about North Korea. Either they are highly supporting it, or they are highly use the cursive languages to critique the current government policies regarding North Korea, and they criticize the infotainment, or they praise the infotainment approaches. So let's move to the key parts. So we learned the Mann-Whitney test to explore the effects of narrative styles. We manually coded all of the narrative styles in infotainment. So these are key elements in infotainment, whether they are accentualization, which is they are they're focusing on more personal elements of politicians rather than their public elements, and humor, using humor or colloquial languages, which is informal languages, and privatization, like private life of the politicians, or dramatization, whether they use some dramatize the news stories, or speculation is the traditionally that was the popular one, but it was not used in this infotainment approach at all. So that was very interesting. So it's not really based on fact assumption or something like that, but it's more focused on amusing people. And we realized that accentualization, humor influences all of the number of views and the number of likes and number of dislikes and number of comments. Very interesting. So when they use more humor, people views the video more, people like the video more, people at the same time, they hate the videos, and there are more comments. And so we see that those four, humor was the most strong, and the accentualization using colloquial languages and privatization, focusing on private life of, for example, Kim Jong-il, rather than their policies of North Korea. People like that more or hate that more. So this is the key finding. I think it's almost 5 p.m. So I think I will stop here. But do you have any questions about this, some research highlights?
So for this exact same content, some people love it and some people hate it.
Yes, that's interesting. But so I was curious about why this happened, but previous studies also see that there is a strong correlation between liking and disliking. So maybe this is course for future research about what does that mean really. So maybe some people like it and some people dislike it.
But yeah. it is better than ignorance, at least.
Yeah, it's better. There is some interest. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So I've never heard of the term infotainment, so I think it's pretty useful to learn about studies like this. So thank you for sharing. Okay. Before we move on to Sarika's students' talk, do we have some questions?
There are some questions in chat. Yeah, let me see.
There is no question on the chat.
Yeah, there's no question. Do you have?
They are
any
not
questions?
interested in North Korea.
No, we are. I mean, we are.
Actually, and then the Sejung just showed a nice diagram of the network visualization, and then one of my master students, Song Ha-young, she is on a Zoom meeting here, and then she did a great job to visualize this nice diagram, and then I would like to encourage her to this kind of the data creation for her future, and then acknowledge her work here.
Okay. And these ones are some names. I don't recognize some of the names are there.
Which names?
Like on the right hand side?
Oh,
those are user IDs.
Yeah, these are user IDs.
I see. Okay. Okay. So like in like individuals, like not necessarily like well-known public figures, but
not necessarily.
Yeah, individuals who are taking huge roles on these. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great point. So you see that we see the Joguk names, the username, but it's just one of the username. Yeah, they are usually the participant people, individuals. They're not famous person on YouTube, but you see the node size is proportional to the number of comments. So they are talkative people, are cohesively interacted to each other in this discussion. So they heated the discussion.
So we do not know yet because we have not received the feedback from the referee in journal. So if we get the good feedback, and then that's definitely thanks to you. We shared our research in advance.
Okay, so I mean, in this coronavirus pandemic, you've been like so productive, writing, submitting papers. That's really amazing.
I know.
Yeah. So we were struck really hard, and I think a lot of the work were kind of delayed, and got got reduced, structured down. But I see even Professor Hanwoo Park in Daegu could be so so super productive during this. It's really amazing. Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you very much for the interesting topic as well. And I'm wondering what the color of the circle means in the.
Oh, that's a good question. The color of the circle is also the proportion to the degree of node. So if there is have more connection to other types, they are more reddish color. So
I see.
red, purple colors have more connection than like the olive colors in the center. Yeah. So you see that the people have more connections are influencers in this network. Yeah.
I see. So the size of the circle and the color of the circle have the same meaning.
Yes.
I see. I see. And regarding the the relationship between humors of the contents and the relationship between likes and dislikes, I think they may be highly correlated with the political orientations for individuals. So do you have any on that as well?
Yeah, I think there may be like progressive people more like the infotainment approach, or conservative people will definitely hate that. So that's I think. So we this is not a survey, so we cannot really assume their political ideology based on their comments. So, but that could be good indicator for survey or experiment in the future studies, I think. Because usually the political ideology, it's based on the self-reports rather than, because maybe people have a political progressive ideology, maybe conservative for certain issues. So we cannot really detect their political ideology based on the comments at the surface level. But definitely I think there could be a relationship between their political orientation and whether they like or dislike this kind of content. So this is really, I think this is very weird approach in terms of the general Korean news media. They really, this is a really interesting approach, and I see that the public perceive it either favorably or hatefully, but there are more likes. And we also did semantic network analysis, so there is much praises about these approaches.
All right, thank you. So maybe you can also compare this result with the content, infotainment contents from more neutral topics, and also infotainment contents from more political topics, and maybe you can compare those results. And then
it would be very interesting.
Yeah, this result may be more aligned to the infotainment for the political topic.
Yeah, I think especially the nature of the topic makes people to respond more emotionally. Maybe if we can compare it with different cases, we can really see if this is because of the style of the news or because of the orientation of the people, the political ideology. Yeah, good suggestion. Thank you so much. So if our paper will be rejected, I will think about it. I wish it will not be the case, but yeah, for future studies, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so thank you so much for the talk. If no other question, let us all thank the two speakers, virtual claps, and and let's switch